Hey guys, Travis here with Blue Moose Designs, coming to you from cold and dark Anchorage, Alaska. It's a whopping 1 degree outside. Sun is trying to start to come up. Right now we have about 5 hours of daylight a day. It's great. So anyways, this video is going to be the difference between Thunder lasers and Boss lasers. So we'll be going through some of the different things, kind of getting into the machines a little bit, and from there, while I'm waiting for a couple people to hop on, I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick tour of my shop, and gonna apologize in advance about the shaky video. My primary camera that I normally use is currently dead. I didn't have it on the charger last night, so this is coming from an iPhone. So let me flip the camera around here and we'll get started. All right, so here's a quick tour of the shop. Nothing too exciting. Here's Marina. She kind of handles the front desk, phone calls, all that fun stuff. So then we go in. Here's our kitchen. This is what happens when graphic designers get bored over the holiday, is we wrap our fridge to make it look like an old Coke cooler. Here's Tiffany. She's our accounting person. And oh, good. Kids aren't in here. This is our kids' room where we do our homeschooling with them. So then we turn this way, go in. Here is our large laser room with our Thunder Laser Nova 63, which we'll get back to in just a sec. I'm going to grab one thing while I'm in here. All right, so, and then come through. We've got one of our stock rooms here, another stock room. It's kind of messy. We haven't cleaned up after the holiday rush yet. Here's one of our design rooms. We've got our wet room in here, which, you know, as you can see, got bored again, wrapped the door. So this is what we call our wet room. This is where we do all of our cleanup for our tumblers and stuff. Spray out booth and a pressure washer is the best way to go on those. I highly recommend it. We can do about 40 to 50 tumblers at a shot for cleaning up. Got two of our large format printers here. Here is our small laser room with a Boss 1420 laser, and this is a 60 watt, and we'll come right back to that. That Boss is pretty much our dedicated tumbler laser right now. So here's our heat pressing area, DTG, pre-treatment, all that stuff. We've got a label press, which is that little Oki printer there. Runs high-speed labels at about 8.5 inches a second. Yeah, hat presses. This is our sign building room with our couple plotters that we run. And right next door, we've got our embroidery section. We have 4 embroidery machines total. We have 3 Melcos, and then over here is our little baby lock that we have. Which we just use for single color stitch outs. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is air compressors. I get a lot of questions on what to use. A lot of people want them really quiet, all that kind of stuff. This guy here, he is very expensive, but you know, there's a saying that goes around. It's buy once, cry once. And that's very true with this one. You know, it's rated for pretty much solid continuous duty. It's whisper silent. You can hear when I turn it on. That's the compressor running right now. The little bit of rattle you hear is just the stuff sitting on top of it. I can easily talk over it. It's not loud at all. It provides 99% dry air coming straight out of the laser, or out of the air compressor. So that's key to this, since you know we have so many different things going on in the shop. I can't have huge loud compressors in here. So anyways, so here is the Boss laser. So a couple of the things I wanted to go through on this. The first one is this laser head design. So let me scoot it over here really quick. So the laser head design that Boss uses is very, very unique. There's pros and cons to it. There's probably more cons than there is pros. You know, what they did is they built the autofocus system in here. Instead of using a probe, what it does is when you autofocus, it actually pushes this lens up here. And if you look around the back, there's this little black box right there. That senses when this piece comes up. if this piece fails, and they are very highly prone to fail, you can see that on the Boss Laser Facebook groups. What happens is it has to push this head up so far, so when that fails, or if it doesn't read it correctly, it's going to crash your head into your Z table and start breaking stuff. The other thing is adjusting the focus on these can only be done by moving the Z-axis table. It cannot be done by just lowering the head down, because the lens doesn't sit in this lower housing at all. It sits more up here, and so there's no way to drop the actual lens down to change the focus. So in my mind, that's a pretty big con on that. One of the other things that I really don't like about this is how you connect the rotary device. So when you're looking at the laser on all Bosses, the connection for the rotary device is way, you can kind of see it back there in that back corner. And it's, you know, on the 1420 that I have, it's not too bad to reach back in there, but if you start getting into the larger machines, you're gonna start having a problem reaching in that far back corner to swap that plug out. Plus you can't do it, like on Thunders, you can do it while the machine is running. There's a switch to turn it on and off. This one you can't. You have to power down the machine, reach in there, unplug it, plug it back in, change a bunch of settings. It's really kind of a pain. So let's get into some of the specs here. So the first one is what I was talking about, this gantry here. So throw my caliper on there. Let's see if I can get in there to read it. Yep, hold on, I got to re-zero my calipers here. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna throw my caliper on there, and let's see here. So we are at, we're gonna call that 36 millimeters for the width. Also the cable's up here. Let's see if I can get down there. We're at roughly 9 millimeters on the cable. It's 9.13. One of the other big differences are these guys here. These are the stepper motors that they use. I mean, they do the job. They're just a lot slower than what I would like in a production shop. And, you know, they aren't all that great. The other thing is the exhaust design on the Thunders, or sorry, on the Bosses. So the exhaust design, if you look at it, down below in this tray, there's only the 2 holes to suck your smoke down. The primary exhaust source actually comes from back here. So what that's going to do is that's actually going to, if you're engraving wood, that's going to draw your smoke up and over the top of your wood, which is going to stain your wood more, stuff like that. Also, like you see on it right now, that's the stock light that's on the Boss. I mean, if I back up, you can see I've got tons of dark spots, just isn't well lit. So I had to install additional lights here, which I'll kick on, and you can see how much more it brightens that up. One of the other things, at first I thought it was going to be really cool and it was needed, is this tinted hood that they use. It's there purely for show. The tint on it does absolutely nothing for additional protection. All your protection is actually in the plexiglass itself. So all they're really doing is making it harder to see what's going on inside. So that's kind of it with the Boss. Let me see here. Turn this thing off for now. And let's run into the other laser room here. All right, so here we are on the Thunder. Like I said, this is Nova 63. Let me move my head out of the way a little bit. All right, re-zero this guy. All right, so the first thing that we're going to notice is the gantry on here is much more substantial. We're sitting at 40.11 millimeters for the thickness on it. Plus the cable here. Let's see if I can swap hands here so I can get the... So we're at almost 15 millimeters. We're at 14.63 millimeters on the drag cables, or on the cables there. So you're actually going to get a much better movement out of that. And like I was saying on the Thunders, the connection for your rotary is right up here in the front. So it's really easy to get to. There's that switch I was talking about that enables and disables it. You never have to worry about actually removing the cable off of one of your axes to plug it in. I think that's just a poor design all the way around. And I didn't measure this on the other one, I probably should have, but also the drag chains. The drag chains are much more substantial on this as well. They're a lot better built. And then of course, if you look in here, and you can see the size comparison difference on one of the servo motors versus the stepper motors. So like I said in the post, you know, the stepper motors, they max out at 375 millimeters a second. That's what they're rated to do. The way that the mechanics are designed in the Boss, they can't handle the 375, which is, I'm sure, why they limited it down to the 300. The servo motors are designed to go 1,000 millimeters a second. The hardware on the Thunders actually can support the 1,000 millimeters a second. And then one of the other things, if you look in here, there are no vent holes on the back side of the Thunder. And let me grab my keys here. All right, so let me drop this front panel. Sorry, like I said, I know it's a mess in here, but just got done with a big Christmas rush, so. Got a piece of plastic stuck in the way there. Come on, plastic, move. All right. So when we get into this, you can see all your venting is done there, or back there on the Thunders. What this is going to do is, as your laser's cutting, this is going to draw the smoke down and away from your project instead of, which is the natural path, as it's, you know, your laser and your air assist is pushing the air down through the wood. This is going to continue to pull it through the wood and straight out of the laser, whereas the Boss, the laser head is going to push it down with the air assist. It's going to push it down through the wood, and then the Boss, the way it's designed, is going to suck all that smoke back up through your wood. So it's a really poor design, in my opinion. But which is one of the reasons we turned that into just a dedicated tumbler machine. So that's kind of that. As you can see here, I mean, the lighting on the Thunders are great. Instead of installing the lights on the bottom of the gantry like Boss does, they put them on the sides. You do have the clear windows up on the top, so you can actually see what's going on while you're working in there. Just all in all, it's just a much better built machine. So let me hop in, log in, and just see if there's any questions, because I can't see that from my iPhone right now. Flip the camera back around. Okay. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions right now, so but anyways, so yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Oh, one of the other things actually I wanted to mention on this, you know, let's talk about the focus on these for a second. So let me grab just a chunk of wood here and throw it up here. And flip this around. Okay, so this little guy that Boss gives you, that Thunder gives you, actually works well. So this is how you're supposed to set your focus, and basically what it does, the way the autofocus system works on this is you're supposed to raise your table up all the way. You have to make sure that your project is crossing that little black sensor right there in the back, and then so you raise your project all the way up until it stops. Hold on, let me move my head a little bit here. Okay, so once you do that, you take your little wedge, put it on its side. I made the mistake at first trying to run it this way. It was a pain. The acrylic they use to make these is the perfect width. So you put it on its side, drop your head all the way down, and tighten up this guy here. And now your autofocus is preset. So if I come in here and if I drop this table, let's see here. If I drop the table all the way down, what's going to happen is now I can come in to my control panel hit autofocus, and it'll automatically move my table until it breaks that beam, get it perfect, and you can see here it's perfect every single time, at least with this wood here. So one of the other things that I really liked about the nozzle design on this, let me drop that table down so I can get it back out, is so when you look at this, has a much finer tip. Thunder gives you two different tips. One is the fine hole like this. One of them is the wide hole. What that does is help you with the air assist. So when I'm cutting wood on my Thunder, I really only have to go, to 20 psi on my air. Where on my Boss laser, I have to run my psi all the way up to around 60 or 70, and that's all because of that airflow design on that hole. Plus, if I'm engraving, I can swap out to the wider tip on it and just put a whisper of air through it, just enough to keep the smoke off the lens, and get perfect engraves every single time. To show you what the Thunder is capable of, so here's some leather patches that I did. Let me throw them in the caliper so you can see how big they are. So these guys are not all that big. So we're at 35.69 millimeters, and you can kind of see the the level of detail. So the stitching holes right on the edge there, it was able to do that without blowing those out to the side or anything like that. There's Angela. She's one of our graphic designers, or actually our only graphic designer. So she's amazing at what she does. So let's go back and I'll stop and show you the cut quality. So here is the cut quality that we get on a Thunder laser. So you can see it's really, really nice, clean, smoke-free cuts. And then let's go over to the Boss. I'll show you some of the cuts that it produces with wood. Actually, let me show you the edges of that wood too. That's another big part. I know I'm walking back and forth a bunch, but all right. So let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. So you can see we have really nice, clean cut edges. Everyone's looking for that nice golden color. This Thunder kind of bypasses that. It just cuts straight through. You get almost raw wood. Let's see. I'm planning on ordering a Nova 35 100 watt today or Monday at the latest. Well, Gary, you'll be glad to watch this whole video then. So it'll definitely show you what's going on. All right, so this was cut out on the Boss. And so if you look at it, you can kind of see what I was talking about, how it draws the smoke back up. So you can see what happens is, your air assist is blowing the smoke through the wood, and then because of the system or the exhaust system on a Boss, it pulls it back up, and you end up with all these smoke lines on it. I have my Boss dialed in pretty well, so I'm getting nice golden edges on it, which, let's see if I can get that focus. There we go. So I'm getting nice golden edges on the Boss, but yeah, that smoke, I mean, that just creates a ton of work afterwards. I mean, you have to go in and sand all that stuff off or clean it off. It's just kind of a pain. So, I mean, the Bosses, don't get me wrong, they aren't a bad laser, but for the money that you're paying for it, you can save money or get a bigger laser with a Thunder and have a better thing. So you can kind of see this is the kind of detail that you should expect on a Boss. I mean, they do good at engraving tumblers, but that's about all that we do with them. So here's another one that we do. This is part of our Stanley line that we carry. So we're one of 2 Stanley dealers up in Alaska. But anyways, let's see. I'm trying to think what else anyone could possibly want to know. The one thing is that I'm planning on switching. So my Boss is currently hooked up via USB. I'm not a big fan of that. There's some stability issues going USB, really on any product. And so if you have the option to go Ethernet or Cat5, I highly recommend doing that. It's just much more stable. It allows you to add multiple machines easier. One of the things that I have done on my Boss that I plan on doing on my Thunder is see if I can get in there to show you guys. I've got the camera alignment system set up on my Boss, but you can kind of see when I had to install the lights, you know, it took a couple holes there for the switch, took a hole there to route the wire, plus I had to do some rewiring in the back to add an additional power supply to run those lights. Let's see what else here. Anyone have any questions or anything on anything? Not seeing anything come through yet. A couple comments, but well, I guess if there's no questions, let's run a quick little test on this Thunder, show you guys what it can do. All right, so it's going to get loud here for a sec. I've got to turn on my air compressor for the Thunder. It's a much bigger compressor. I haven't bought one of the silent ones for it yet. But one of the advantages, Thunder, at first I thought this light was kind of goofy that they had it. I'm not a big fan of industrial equipment that has those lights, but I finally figured out a use for it. When my air compressor is running, I cannot hear when the Thunder laser finishes a job. So if that light's green, that means it's done with the job. If it's red, it's still cutting. So that helps out quite a bit. So I'm going to turn that on, turn on my fan, chiller. Throw a piece of wood on here. Focus this thing really quick. So I'm going to set this guy right up here for a minute. See if I can prop something under there. Alright, Alright, well, we'll get back to that here in a sec. Alright, we're going to turn that off for a sec so you guys can hear me. We're going to give it about 18 psi there, and let's hit go. So you can see this is how fast a Thunder engraves. So this is at 1,000 millimeters a second. And this is just an image I already had preloaded in there. So it's at 300 DPI. It was for some cutting boards that we did, but it goes pretty quick. What type of air compressor would you recommend on the Nova 35100 that is quieter than the stock, but not a ton? So for the air compressor on a 3500 watt, what I would probably do is California Air Tools makes a nice little 10-gallon tank air compressor. Let me throw this wedge up here really quick. There we go. So they make a nice little, it's either a 8 or a 10-gallon air compressor, couple $100. It's quite enough that you can still work around it, talk around it. It's not as quiet as the one that I have in the back, but it's, it's a great little machine. If you can, I would spring for the extra little money and get the one with the aluminum tank. They do sell one with an aluminum tank as opposed to the steel tank, less prone to rust out and that kind of stuff. And I want to say the air compressors are right about $200 or $220. I think it's about $300 with the one with the aluminum tank. You can purchase them straight through California Air Tools or through Amazon, or Home Depot sells them as well. So let me go ahead and stop this guy here really quick. All right, sorry, I had to go turn off the air really quick. So you can see the amount of smoke burn that I have on this. I should have had my air down a lot lower than I did. I had it set at 18 PSI. I probably could have gotten away with just 5 PSI because of the nozzle that I'm running. But you can see there is not much smoke burn. To clean it up, Angela, have you seen that rag in here? They're all the way in the back. I'll find something though. Sorry, we just threw out all of our rags here, so yeah, we'll use this. So you can see to clean this thing up, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's as simple as giving it a quick wipe, and the majority of it is already gone. So you can see there it is on the rag. You know, a lot of times on wood, we'll actually do a wet clean where we actually get it wet with water and go that way. And here, let me see if I can pull up that air compressor really quick. Oh, I got it. Okay, here it is right here. So you can see here's the two models. So it's the CAT 8010. It's an 8-gallon. That's the one with the steel tank. The one directly below it is this guy here. The only difference is it has an A at the end of the model number, and that's the aluminum tank. So they are very quiet. So this is for your compressor that you were talking about running. This is probably all you would need. I mean, you know, on the Thunders, I rarely ever have to go above 20 PSI, even when I'm cutting wood. I know a lot of people say, oh, if you're cutting wood, you've got to run, you know, 60 PSI or whatever. But honestly, with that nozzle design that Thunder uses, you really don't need that much. I mean, 20 PSI is more than enough to get you a nice clean cut. You know, you can boost it up, but you know, you're able to run at 40 PSI, you can run 3.1 cubic feet of air a minute, which is more than this air compressor than this laser will consume. You know, their cycle duties are pretty decent on them. It's 45 minutes off, or it's 45 minutes on, and then 15 minutes off. So the cycling on it will be just fine. The biggest thing that I see people forget all the time is when you do an air compressor, you've got to run an auto drain valve. That's super important. If you don't run that auto drain valve, you have to be really diligent about every couple hours while you're running your laser. You've got to go in and purge your drain, or purge the drain valve on that air compressor. Water will kill air compressors super quick. But you can see here, it's only 60 decibels. You know, it's a good little thing here. Let's actually see what their current price is on these. Okay, so I was off a little bit. So straight from them, it's $249. And let's see, and actually that's for the aluminum tank one. So yeah, so $249 for the aluminum tank one. Let's hop back to the steel tank. There we go. I usually have a little link right up at the top. They're hiding the link on this one. All right, well, if you play around on their website, you'll find it, but it's right around $200. So it is, the steel one is a little bit cheaper. So the Harbor Freight air compressors, I'm not a huge fan of them. One, we can't get Harbor Freight up here, so they're really, really expensive for us to ship because we have to send them to a freight forwarder since we're in Alaska. But I've heard of, you know, a lot of people complain about them going out prematurely. I'm not saying that California Air Tools is the best in the world. By all means, I have burnt up this exact air compressor before. It was the aluminum model. You know, we just run our equipment so hard here that it was getting used all the time, and it fried the electronics and the motor in it. So, you know, we did have to swap it out. Luckily, at the time it fried, it was our backup unit, so, you know, it is what it is. So anyways, yeah, if there's no other questions, you know, I'm gonna head off or sign off here, and feel free to send me a private message or reply into this video if you have any questions, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. So until then, I'll see you guys all later.